6 minutes of the reading time. The reading time has elapsed. May the main submitter of this resolution please rise and read out all operative clauses excluding all subclauses.
Clause 1 highly recommends more economically developed countries to cooperate with non-governmental organizations such as COVID-19 Vaccines Global Access and African Vaccine Acquisition Trust to share surplus vaccine doses with less economically developed countries through means such as, but not limited to. It encourages LADCs to cooperate with vaccine drives and other non-governmental health organizations such as the WHO in order to ensure clean and safe vaccination processes within these said regions through means such as, but not limited to. Urges member states to raise awareness on the inequitable distribution of vaccines across the world through means such as, but not limited to. Highly encourages LADCs with comparatively low vaccination rates to equip themselves with self-sufficient means of acquiring and distributing vaccines through means such as, but not limited to. Calls upon member states to eliminate barriers in exporting COVID-19 vaccines and promote international and equitable access to further the principles of cooperation and solidarity, and to ensure the right for everyone to gain access to vaccines through ways such as, but not limited to. Urges the vaccination of minorities, refugees, and displaced persons to take place within countries that have accepted refugees in order to protect individuals against COVID-19, especially in light of the Ukraine-Russia border conflict and rising refugee numbers. Demands that all parties with armed conflicts fully comply with obligations under international law, including international human rights law and international humanitarian law in order to.
Thank you, Delegate. The chair has allotted 55 minutes for the debate on the resolution. May the main submitter please give his opening remarks on the resolution.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests. This delegate would first of all like to congratulate all the co-submitters for working so hard on this resolution that this delegate believes is perfect in order to tackle the issue at hand. This delegate believes that this resolution, more so than others, really focuses on reducing the gaps between MEDCs and LEDCs. And practically, that is the biggest issue surrounding the problem of the lack of equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. Now, this delegate believes that there are three major points that all delegates should focus on within this resolution. The first is that this resolution focuses on diplomatic means to increase cooperation. Now, if all delegates could turn their attention to Operative Clause 1, it talks about creating a special committee in which different member states will come together to specifically outline how many vaccine doses each nation should be contributing to the global vaccine drives. And by establishing these standards, this delegate believes that individual nations can be held more accountable and thus further facilitate the process of ensuring that MEDCs are sharing their vaccines with LADCs. Operative Clause 3 raises awareness on donation measures and thus allows further awareness to be brought on this issue of inequitable access and certain nations hoarding vaccines, even though a large portion of their population has been given vaccines already. Operative Clause 6 talks about removing economic barriers. This delegate believes that taxes, tariffs, and visa allocations are critical in order to overcome some of these vaccine distribution problems. And this delegate believes that there is no place for these economic barriers to stand when millions of people are dying around the world. Another important part of this resolution is empowering LEDCs. Now, Operative Clause 2 focuses on vaccines being translated into vaccinations. And this is extremely important because just by giving doses does not mean that a large portion of LADC populations will be able to get vaccinated. Hence, it is important to ensure the means of vaccinations, including the equipments, the temporary stations where individuals can easily access and receive vaccinations. Additionally, Operative Clause 4 talks about means of manufacturing vaccines domestically. And as mentioned previously in some of the amendments for other resolutions, this delegate strongly believes that LEDC should be directly involved in producing these vaccines because that allows the local populations to interact more closely and therefore have greater access to some of these vaccines that are produced, even if it is produced by large pharmaceutical companies. Now, the last point this delegate would like to mention is how this resolution protects the most vulnerable individuals. Operative Clause 5 emphasizes emphasizes the standard of providing those in need first. And this delegate believes that minority individuals, those of elderly populations, and frontier healthcare workers need to be prioritized in certain nations in order to minimize the harm that is done for all nations around the world. Operative Clause 7 focuses on minorities and refugees, often individuals that are left behind and relegated to the last individuals to eventually get the vaccines. This delegate believes that it is important that the Human Rights Council focuses on granting these individuals rights and access to vaccines. And finally, Operative Clause 8 talks about areas of conflicts. There are so many different areas of conflict in the modern day and age, and especially with the most recent conflict that has erupted in Ukraine and Russia, this delegate believes that it is important that these individuals are not left behind in the global action to overcome the COVID-19 virus. Now, overall, this delegate believes that this resolution as a whole embodies the spirit of cooperation. Cooperation is what is needed in order to overcome this pandemic as a whole. And this delegate further encourages all delegates to submit amendments that could make this amendment more fruitful and thus pass it within this House so that equitable access to vaccines as a fundamental right to all citizens can be ensured. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Portugal, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable chairs and fellow member nations, the Delegate of Portugal fully encourages the Council to vote for the resolution made by the Delegate of the UK. Reason being is it's appropriately explicit and covers details such as the distribution of surplus vaccines to less economically developed countries, prioritizes on vaccinating marginalized groups, and encourages MEDCs and international organizations to aid less economically developed country citizens for going through a safe vaccination procedure. The resolution also encourages member nations to work together with each other and other organizations to ensure equal access and distributions of vaccines. To conclude, this resolution is one step closer for the whole Council to cooperate and combat COVID-19 together. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to any and all POIs.
The delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
This delegate would like to yield back to the chair. Thank you.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Philippines, you have been recognized.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests, the Delegate of the Republic of Philippines highly urges any and all delegates to vote for this resolution. This resolution aims to bring out positive outcomes for many factors and is well crafted. This resolution tackles to improve the dire situation of the pandemic through situations such as LEDCs with comparatively low vaccination rates to equip themselves with self-sufficient means of acquiring and distributing vaccines through pharmaceutical companies producing COVID-19 vaccines. This delegate supports this resolution, and this resolution will be the key to help solve the issue of ensuring equal access to COVID-19 vaccinations. The emergence of safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines offers hope, but we can only end this pandemic through fair and equal access to vaccines for all, and this resolution achieves this. The Delegate of the Republic of Philippines highly urges any and all delegates to vote for this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all?
The delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Delegate of Russia, you have been recognized.
Thank you. The delegate would like to turn the council's attention to Operative Clause 4, Subclause C, which calls for patent waivers on COVID-19 vaccines, and in Subclause 2 to lessen the price of vaccines for LEDCs. So how does this resolution attempt to incentivize these private companies to, well, conduct a patent waiver on their vaccines and to lessen the price of vaccines?
Well, as these big pharmaceutical companies are creating the vaccine to save lives, they wouldn't be in it all for the money and would be willing to possibly help.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
First, great thanks to the Delegate of UK for a well-informed resolution. The honorable chosen fellow delegates, the Delegate of Germany strongly supports Clause 1, Subclause A, and Subclause 3. Many African countries are facing a shortage of vaccines, so their COVID-19 cases are exponentially increasing. Comparing South Africa and Ireland, both countries have similar land size. Nevertheless, South Africa has 22 times of COVID cases than Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to any of your lines.
The delegate has opened himself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
The delegate will yield his time back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Australia, you have been recognized.
The Delegate of Australia fully supports this resolution and encourages all members of the Council to vote for this resolution because it is detailed, explicit, and discusses many topics that lead us back to the main topic of this Council, which is to provide equal access to COVID-19 vaccinations. In the resolution, many situations have been discussed to bring as much equality as possible, such as resolutions for how to make refugees, minorities, and displaced persons have access to vaccinations. Along with these, we've made sure that vulnerable groups of individuals have first priority to these vaccinations too, so we can ensure as much equality as possible. This resolution also speaks in light of recent conflicts to make sure everything is up to date and can be done accordingly to the situation in the current present day.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to 2 points of information.
The delegate has opened herself up to 2 points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? The delegate of Nigeria, you have been recognized.
Thank you. Can the delegate clarify what Clause 3, Subclause A means? Thank you.
The Clause 3, Subclause A brings light upon the problem of how their vaccination countries are keeping surplus vaccinations and to make sure that that is not kept and the surplus vaccination doses are given to LEDCs.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? The delegate of Democratic Republic of Congo, you have been recognized.
Distinguished delegates and fellow observers. Firstly, Congo would like to thank the Minister of the United Kingdom and the co-submitters for such a well-crafted and holistic resolution. However, the delegate of Congo still have mixed feelings about clause 1, subclause B, subclause 1I. More specifically, selling vaccines up to a price that covers production costs. If this is allowed, will it lead to a risk of abuse? To illustrate, if we sell vaccines at a lower price, there will still be only certain countries in the middle income range that can buy these vaccines, therefore leaving lower income countries to cannot afford these vaccines, therefore leading to the exacerbation of the status quo. So the delegate of Congo would express her wish for this conflict to be resolved before the committee consider voting in favor of this resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Yes, any and all.
The delegate has opened herself to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Delegate of Democratic Republic of Congo, for your speech. Can the Delegate of Germany ask for some examples of the case of abusion with vaccines?
Point of information suggests, can Germany repeat the inquiry?
Delegate of Germany, please repeat your question.
Can the Delegate of Germany ask, can the Delegate of Congo give some examples of case of abusion for the vaccine selling?
The delegate of Congo is not talking about the abuse of vaccination, but rather the abuse of selling these vaccinations, because the aim of selling this vaccination written by the submitters here is to incentivize high-income countries to donate more, but then to eventually solve the problem of vaccine inequity. However, there will be risk if we sell these vaccines, because only the countries in the middle income range, they can afford, they have the financial resources to afford these, while the lower income countries, they will still be left behind. So the HRC believes that this conflict here, the problem here is not fully addressed. So the delegate would like to have this conflict resolved before voting in favor of this resolution.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate? That is in order. The floor is now once again open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Japan, you have been recognized.
First of all, thank you for the Delegate of UK and other submitters for this very very specific and also high in quality resolution they submitted. However, the delegate wants to suggest an additional clause or a subclause that can be added into this resolution that can overall improve the resolution as a whole. And it is about adding a specific goal to achieve the certain actions that are provided in this resolution.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Delegate of Australia, Delegate of United States of America, you have been recognized in that order.
What goal would you aim towards?
As a point of information to share, could the Delegate of Australia repeat your question? Michael Tiff.
Delegate of Australia, could you repeat your question?
What goal would this be aimed towards?
The delegate was specifically thinking about a certain time range. This goal can be achieved through, for example, a specific year that all the delegations aim to achieve solution.
Delegate of United States of America.
However, isn't the specific date of achieving indicated in the operative clause 1 subclause A, in which it says creating a special conference before September 2022?
The delegate thought the special conference that is aimed to be held before September 2022 was to discuss about the percentage of vaccinations. No, discuss about the countries who have exceeded their percentage of vaccination over 80% of their population, and to actually create a list of countries that are available to donate their surplus vaccination doses.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. Once again, delegates, please remember that personal pronouns are not allowed in this conference. And once again, the floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Czech Republic, you have been recognized.
First of all, this delegate would like to thank the delegate of UK and all the co-submitters of this detailed and high-quality resolution. This delegate encourages any and all member states to vote for this resolution. This resolution tackles multiple issues people are concerned about. This delegate would like to add on that this resolution makes sure that LEDCs don't rely on other countries' campaigns, organizations, and such to donate vaccinations. Instead, this resolution states what LEDCs could do to ensure that individuals have equal access to COVID vaccinations. This resolution also concerns recent issues such as the complications and side effects of the COVID vaccinations, misinformation regarding the vaccinations, and more. Therefore, the delegate of Czech Republic highly encourages any and all delegates to vote for this resolution. Thank you.
Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? The delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, the delegate of Democratic Republic of Congo, you have been recognized.
Delegates and fellow observers. The delegate of Congo thinks that one of the strengths of this resolution is the inclusivity of all. The delegate would like to move the committee's attention to clause 8, which demonstrates this characteristic of this resolution. However, Congo would like to note that previous efforts made by the UN Secretary General on appealing for peace or ceasefire in armed conflicts areas have been unsuccessful from the start of the pandemic until now. So how will the submitters of this resolution guarantee and ensure the applicability of this clause?
Delegate of Czech Republic.
Sorry, can the chair ask the delegate of Congo to rephrase her question?
The delegate wanting the point of information to the chair. Delegate of Democratic Republic of Congo, could you reframe your question?
Clause A encompasses on demanding the parties without conflict fully comply with obligation under international law. But Congo wants to remind the committee that previous efforts and appeal for ceasefire or peace in these areas made by the UN Secretary General from the start of the pandemic until now has been unsuccessful. So how will this resolution ensure that this clause will be successful and implementable?
Well, in clause 2, it states that the LEDCs, it encourages LEDCs to cooperate with vaccine drives and other non-governmental health organizations such as the WHO and state, and share correct information, so that since most governments don't really share misinformation, therefore not a lot of people can trust the vaccinations.
Thank you, delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Australia, you have been recognized.
This delegate would like to restate that everybody should strongly vote for this, and also strongly agrees with clause 2, as it not only mentions the appropriate use and donations of vaccines, but also talks about the vaccination process itself, which is just as important because of the materials required and the locations needed. Because if vaccines are provided, but the vaccination processes are not there, then it would not be of much use.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to 1 POR.
The delegate has opened herself up to 1 point of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
Honorable Chairman, esteemed delegates, the Delegate of Germany strongly supports clause 4A. Many LDC countries are countering problems with their technology, with transporting vaccines. So many LDC countries are facing lack of vaccines. So the resolution clause 4 subclause A need to be passed for the issue. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to only 2 POIs.
The delegate has opened himself up to 2 points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
The delegate will yield his time back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegates who have not spoken yet for this resolution are highly encouraged to speak. Delegate of New Zealand, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chairs and esteemed delegates, the Delegate of New Zealand wishes to express his full support of the resolution submitted by the Delegate UK because it has covered the main aspects regarding the issue. The resolution has addressed the possible repercussions of vaccine inequity, as well as suggested practical solutions to the problem. To clause 1 and 2, we can see the specific details regarding the involvement of NGOs to vaccine distribution and its responsibility towards both economically and less economically developed countries. Clauses 5 and 7 have also specifically targeted the group of individuals and the minority that either faces difficulty getting access to vaccines or those that are currently put in a highly vulnerable situation. Lastly, the resolution has also succeeded in calling upon member states not only provide and donate resources aimed towards ensuring access and equal distribution of vaccines, but also rewrite laws and remove barriers impeding the deployment of vaccines so as to promote the principles of cooperation. In conclusion, the Delegate of New Zealand now heartily encourages the whole committee to vote for this resolution.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
No, the delegate would like to yield the floor back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Once again, delegates who have not spoken yet for this resolution are highly encouraged to speak. Seeing that there are none, Delegate of Indonesia, you have been recognized.
The Delegate of Indonesia wishes to bring point to how this resolution succeeds in bringing out the truly essential details relating to the accessibility of COVID-19 vaccinations by providing information towards as supporting the accessibility and the contact for the civilians to get access to a designated time for which they can be vaccinated, as well as coming to terms with providing suitable situations in which the citizens can feel relieved and relaxed towards getting vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccination.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened himself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Vietnam, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Vietnam would like to draw attention to clause 4, operative clause 4, which is encourage LEDCs to cooperate with pharmaceutical companies to construct factories and further endowing new technologies. However, this delegate take issue with the fact that how the LEDC have enough budget adequate to support our all this constructions and production, and the budget to ensure that they reach the same efficiency as with the production in the higher income countries. So this delegate would like to see maybe some amendments or any elaborations on this point.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
One point of information.
The delegate has opened herself up to 1 point of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Delegate of United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. This delegate would like to ask, considering that these factories will be constructed by pharmaceutical companies, not by LEDCs, does that address some of your concerns regarding the lack of funds to create these facilities?
Yes, this delegate is satisfied with UK answers.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Seeing that there are none, Delegate of Thailand, you have been recognized. Repeating, Delegate of Thailand, you have been recognized. Assuming that the delegate.
Okay, next speakers are with me a little.
Pardon? Could the delegate repeat what he said just now?
Can I our next person, because like I'm a little bit like be.
Then, Delegate of Iran, you have been recognized.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests, the delegate of Iran believes that this resolution is would first like to thank the delegate of the UK and all of the co-submitters for submitting such a well-written resolution. And this delegate believes that, especially in terms of dealing with help towards the LEDCs, as they are the most vulnerable stakeholders when it comes to equality and distribution of safe vaccination processes. For example, clauses like clause 2 and clause 4 working together. With these two clauses working together, this delegate believes that there could definitely be a system wherein equal distribution of vaccination can happen. And therefore, this delegate believes that this resolution should be voted for. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
Honorable chairs and fellow delegates, the delegate of Germany strongly supports clause 6, subclause B and C. Many volunteers are facing with visas and can't migrate to other countries for helping. And also many elitist countries are suffering from the tax of importing vaccines, which they can purchase a lot of vaccines for their countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to only one POI.
The delegate has opened himself up to only 1 point of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
The delegate will this time back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Democratic Republic of Congo, you have been recognized.
Chairs, distinguished delegates, and fellow observers. Once again, the delegate of Congo would like to compliment this resolution inclusivity and consideration for the marginalized groups of people, especially demonstrated through Clause 7. However, the delegate of Congo believes that this clause is lacking some mechanism for regulating and supervising such refugees and displaced persons, considering that displacement and movement is constant for the migrant's life. Therefore, there will be many challenges that arises, such as regulating who has received the first dose or 2 doses, or like incentivizing migrants to come back for the second dose. So the delegate of Congo would like this problem be considered before the conference vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you, Chairs.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened herself up to any and all points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Delegate of Australia, Delegate of Portugal, and Delegate of United Kingdom. You have been recognized in that order.
Thank you for your statement. What do you suggest on how to vaccinate these groups of minorities, refugees, and displaced persons if migrating is irregular?
Thank you for your very insightful question. The delegate of Congo have suggestions in mind, such as issuing certificates of vaccinations for these people. And if they return for the second dose, these migrants will be required to show these certifications to the vaccination center. Therefore, the authorities will have this kind of proof that these migrants are not abusing the benefits that is given by the country of shelter.
Next delegate, please.
Apologies. Thank you, Chair. Delegate of the Democratic Republic of Congo, what can the delegate suggest regarding the mechanisms of regulating and supervising these marginalized groups as stated in your speech?
Thank you, the delegate of Portugal, for your question. As I have explained before when answering to the previous question from the delegate, the Congo would suggest nations to issue certificates of vaccination to these refugees and migrants, so that, for example, if they come back for the second dose, they will be required to show this to the vaccination centers. Therefore, the authorities will have like this track keeping of these migrants, and therefore prevent the abuse, the oversight in the regulation and supervision of migrants. The DRC hopes that the answer has cleared your confusion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate, for your speech. Considering that a large portion of migrants have not even received their first dose, does Delegate not believe that getting rid of this clause and thereby not passing this resolution may put the larger danger for migrants because they may not even be warranted or given their first dose at all?
Yes, the DRC has not mentioned anything about striking this clause or making any amendments. She is only trying to draw the council attention to how can we regulate and how can we keep track of these migrants vaccination process. And she thinks that she has provided some suggestion that should be considerable inside this council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Germany has submitted an amendment.
Would that be in order?
That would be in order.
Delegate of Germany, you have been recognized.
The honorable chairs and fellow delegates, as the delegate of UK previously mentioned, for clause 4 subclause A, technology and finance will be provided by MEDC countries or pharmaceutical companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information? Delegate of Germany?
The delegate will at this time back to the chair.
Thank you. The House will now conduct voting on this amendment. Delegates wishing to vote in favor, please raise your placards high. And delegates wishing to vote against, please raise your placards high. Delegates wishing to abstain, please raise your placards high. With 6 votes for, 1 against, and 17 for abstain, we will now do a motion to divide the House. Again, please raise your placards high, either if you are voting for or against. Abstaining is not allowed. Delegate who has abstained right now, please raise your placards, change your placards, please. Thank you. With 15 votes for and 7 against, the amendment passes. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Seeing none, Delegate of Thailand, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Thailand wants to against the operative clause 5B about the educational 5B about the with my laptop is like about in the 5 is about the in the 5C about educating medical personnel of the possible effects of the COVID-19, because in some countries, such as the USA, the people don't want to get the vaccine because they think that the government is making economic from the vaccine, and the people produce vaccines such as Pfizer or Modern is take the profit from it. So people don't, the citizens didn't believe and don't want to get vaccines. So how we can solve it?
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
One POI.
The delegate has opened himself up to 1 point of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair.
That is in order. The floor is now open to any delegates wishing to speak for or against the resolution. Are there any in the House? Seeing as none, Delegate of Republic of Korea, you have been recognized.
The delegate of Korea fully gives its gratitude for conducting a well-written resolution for a worldwide perspective to Ukraine and its co-submitters. Such operative clauses include Operative Clause 5 that states additional care for any armed areas. Moreover, this allows citizens of the country to be included in distributing proper usage of vaccines and hopefully mitigating the spread of new variants. Thus, voting for this resolution is effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Only for 2 POIs.
The delegate has opened herself up to 2 points of information. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Seeing as none, would the delegate like to yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
That is in order. With 8 minutes remaining for this debate, the chair highly recommends moving to the previous question.
Motion to move to previous question.
Are there any seconds?
Seconds.
Second.
Are there any objections? Due to the motion to previous question having no objections, we will move straight to a voting procedure. May admin secure the doors and get into voting procedure. Delegates wishing to vote in favor, please raise your placards high. Delegates wishing to vote against, please raise your placards high. Lastly, delegates wishing to abstain, please raise your placards high. Twenty votes for and 4 for abstain and 0 against. The resolution passes. The clapping is in order. Now, congratulations all delegates. The debate has ended and